Hello and welcome to the Philippines. There is some good news today for many of you. It's come out, foreigners with expired visas will be allowed to stay, and I'm going to have just a little bit of travel news after we discuss this. You'll have to pay your arrears and some penalties, but the last two paragraphs here is what is important. You can read the rest of that if you would like. The last two paragraphs down here. Whereas due to this global pandemic, travel restrictions, both domestic and international, have been imposed by the Philippines and other countries for safety and health reasons. Now, therefore, pursuant to CA 613, Section 3, granting the Commissioner the authority to prescribe rules and regulations needed to carry out the provisions of immigration laws, and as a regulatory relief, the following rules shall be observed. And going over the second page there, let's see, bring up my temporary suspension of the order to leave under Immigration Memorandum Circular during COVID-19. Section 1, temporary suspension of the order to leave. Now, important words, temporary suspension. Don't know when that's going to drop off, but I suspect when the emergency declarations have been taken down. In consideration of the COVID-19 global pandemic, the reciprocity with other countries extending leniency to Filipinos in the same situation abroad, and in the interest of public safety and welfare, the BI, Bureau of Immigration, temporarily suspends the imposition of the order to leave as a form of regulatory relief subject to the provisions thereof. Section 2, applicability of the regulatory relief. The relief shall apply to foreigners holding TVVs, temporary visitors visas, who reached the 24-month period maximum stay for visa required nationals and 36-month period for non-visa required nationals as of March 1, 2020. Now, the 36-month applies to most of you listening, but there are a few countries that are on a 24-month stay limitation. Number 2, who have overstayed beginning March 1, 2020, regardless whether they have been in the country beyond the maximum allowable period. Section 3, fines and penalties and other charges in lieu of the order to leave. Foreigners covered by this regulatory relief shall be assessed and pay in lieu of the order to leave the country updating fees, penalties, fines in the form of immigration arrears release certificate, the IARC, and express lane fees. Section 4, a mandatory clause, immigration and all other issuances inconsistent therewith are hereby amended and or modified accordingly. Section 5, effectivity. This operations order shall take effect immediately and shall be deemed terminated upon the official declaration or lifting of the COVID-19 pandemic by the President or his authorized representative, or unless sooner revoked or amended by the Commissioner. What does this mean? A big sigh of relief for hundreds, perhaps thousands of expats out there still in the Philippines who are getting very close to that 36-month visa limit on the tourist visa, whereby you would be ordered to leave the country within a certain period of time, or you would have to file a motion for reconsideration, which takes time to process, and you would have to have a legitimate reason to stay in the country, apply for another type of visa, etc., etc., etc. Now, one thing that's going to happen, I suspect they do have limitations. This is a notice at the Cebu City, Mandaue City Immigration Office in J Center Mall, where the main office is. And I suspect that there's going to be quite a few people going down there in the coming weeks to process this, pay their penalties, and get on with life. One problem is limitations on travel presently. And there may be a longer waiting period. I use JRC Visa Consulting Services, and he's got offices in Cebu City, down near Ayala Mall in the FGU building, and he's got an office in Dumaguete, I think right next to the immigration office there. You know, he can process these in number of batches at a time, probably much faster than if you are not in a situation to go to an immigration office and or don't want to go to an immigration office, but you certainly are able to go to the immigration offices that are open. Now, somebody mentioned the other day, I mentioned in one of my past videos, some immigration offices are requiring you to show all of your past receipts. And I have all of my past receipts, but I've never been asked for those receipts. Has anybody else come up with that? I had heard that when I first came here in 2015, and I'd never been asked for it, but I've always thought, well, I better hold on to them because it was something that I had heard about at one point in time. Another thing you'll find is some offices work a little different, have different requirements. For instance, I've been told that sometimes people going to the Manila office, they're told, no, you can't come in with shorts and sandals. You need to wear long pants and closed shoes. So I think there are, well, just be aware of that and ask other expats about that. Contact the immigration office closest to you for their rules and regulations. One of the issues we have, big issues and confusing issues that we have in the Philippines, and even in Thailand, I think, where they've got different regions under different types of lockdowns, cities and provinces. Where can you travel? Weekly and monthly, the national government changes restrictions and requirements. The LGUs, each province, city, town, barangay, they can lock down certain parts of an area. They can restrict travel, and there's generally little to no warning that they're going to change that. So if you've set plans and they change, you're just out of luck. I've looked at a couple sites that are trying to keep up with that kind of information, where you can travel, what your restrictions are, and they are general enough where they give you some basic guidelines, but they're not specific enough, and they can't keep them up to date, even though they try on a daily basis. I would say it's just too difficult. And then the interpretation of those rules is another issue. Who can travel? Where can you travel? What's required to travel? Do you need a test? Can you show a negative, show that you've recovered from having the virus, etc., etc. Now, many places they're going with these passes, some kind of a pass showing you've been three things. You should qualify under three different situations. Number one, you've been vaccinated. Problem there is different countries accept different vaccines, so the vaccine you've had may not apply to the country you want to go to. The second stipulation is if you've recovered, you show a negative, you show that you have antibodies, you show that you've recovered. And the great news there is that more and more evidence is coming out that natural immunity, and I believe that I've had over a year ago, I think I had a mild case, and a couple months ago I had a more severe case, and shows that I should have antibodies that should last probably for many years. And many times I've read different reports from different studies showing that I should have much more antibodies, and they'll cover much more of the variants than any of the vaccines do at the present time. This is an evolving science, and you know, they need to. I think as time goes on, you know, there are so many. The politics has gotten involved, and so many say, "Oh, everybody needs to get vaccinated." Well, the fact is that those who have had the virus are very well have more defenses, more antibodies, generally speaking, than anybody getting vaccines. So they need to be included in there. And then the third case is if you show a negative test, you show that you don't presently have the disease. And there's talk here around the Philippines that they're going to try to just use the vaccine only, give special preference as a way to force everybody to get vaccinated, even if you've had it and you've got very good immunities. That is disturbing to say the least. Now, getting off that subject briefly, I want to jump over to Mactan Cebu International Airport, show you the domestic flights, the international flights presently here in September, and just show you the limitations. There are limitations on how many people the airports can handle because of the testing requirements when you come into these airports, and the hotels, quarantines, those sort of things, and the limitation of flights. So even if you want to travel and you have the proper visa to travel, is there a flight available, seats available on the flight? All right, to give you some idea of the types of flights that are available, these are domestic flights within the Philippines by a number of airlines. AirAsia has Manila to Cebu, Cebu to Manila, one time daily. Cebu Pacific, Manila, Cebu, Cebu, Manila, 4 times daily. And you can go through these if you're interested. Bacolod, 1 time weekly, so you don't have a lot of choices. Be sure to check with the airlines directly, see what their requirements and restrictions are. Also, Cebu to Clark, 2 times weekly. Clark would probably be my choice instead of Manila. And anyway, let's move down here. Philippine Airlines, looking for Dumaguete. Anybody going to Dumaguete? Huh, that's interesting. I don't see anything to Dumaguete, so you have 3 airlines. And here again, this is Mactan Cebu International Airport. It gives you your choices here. Qatar, Emirates, Scoot, going to Singapore and back. Cathay Pacific, you can get to Hong Kong and get ongoing flights from there. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Going into Incheon, Janair Incheon, and Philippine Airlines being the only one going to the USA. So there are limitations within the system, even if you have a proper visa to fly. You may or may not get on a flight. All you can do is try. There are risks involved in that. They could change the rules and regulations after you've booked flights, hotels, quarantine hotels. The rules can change. Anyway, tourists still are not allowed to come here and just fly into the Philippines and get a tourist stamp at this point in time. Hopefully it will happen before Christmas. If they don't, the Christmas season all over the world, much of the world is, and especially here, so many people from the cold northern climates are coming here during the Christmas winter seasons. They will devastate an already devastated economy. Millions of people needing those tourist dollars, expat dollars. Anyway, that's about all I have for now, and anyway, hopefully we'll be able to travel soon. There will be a number of requirements. Most of the passes that they're talking about have those 3 items. Either get a vaccine, show that you've recovered from the virus and have good immunity, or show a negative a negative test, which most of us should be able to do that. Anyway, safe travels, take care, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.